Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Giraj Swamiti Namne. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimad Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namne. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharne Sheshunyavadi Paschadeshtarne. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. Narayanam Namaskrit Namcham Rotam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Dhiryat. Vanchakalpatra Vishkripa Sindhu Bhavjapatitanam Pavne Vaishnavya Namo Namaha. Welcome once again, all of you, to Hare Krishna Culture. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, verse number 5. Sutta Goswami is saying, Munya sadhu prishtohim bhavdavi vokamangalam yatkrit Krishna samprashno yenatma suprasiddhati. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Translation first. O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna and so are the relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. Srila Prabhupada is explaining in this particular purport. Srila Prabhupada is explaining the whole world is full of questions and answers. The birds, beasts, and men are all busy in the matter of perpetually questions and answers. In the morning, the birds in the nest become busy with questions and answers. And in the evening, also the same birds come back and again become busy with questions and answers. The human being, unless he is fast asleep at night, is busy with questions and answers. The businessmen in the market are busy with questions and answers. And so also the lawyers in the court and the students in the schools and colleges, the legislators in the parliament are also busy with questions and answers. And the politicians and the press representatives are all busy with questions and answers. Although they go on making some questions and answers for their whole lives, they are not at all satisfied. Satisfaction of the soul can only be obtained by questions and answers on the subject of Krishna. You see, when sages asked the 6 questions to Sutta Goswami, and immediately Sutta Goswami replied here, he says, Munyo sadhu prishtuhim bhavdavi lokamangalam. Your question is glorious, O sages. You are asking questions about Krishna. And moreover, you are asking the questions about the well-being of the living beings in this material world. This sort of question one must ask. And Srila Prabhupada is explaining in the purport that how we are asking questions and answers all the time. You may have experienced our children and they ask why, what, and when they start learning to speak after 2 years, 2.5 years, or particularly when they're 3 years old. And they ask their parents, why do you doing this? What is that? Why this? Why this? Every question is why. Because they want to know, they want to learn more and more. Wherever we go, in the colleges, in the schools, what are the students doing? Like Prabhupada mentioned in the purport. In the school and colleges, they are asking their questions to the teachers, to the professors. Similarly, in the courts, the lawyers, they are asking questions and answers. So the whole world is dealing with questions and answers. You see, every company, we may go to the airport, we may go to the bus stand, we may go to the hospital. Everywhere there is a department, inquiries. You want to make any inquiries? Come to this particular department. So these question and answer what we are asking, every single question and answer is relating to our body. Whatever question we ask relate to our body, and that is starts right from the birth up till the death. Janam mrityu jara vyadi dukto shanu darshanam. Aha nidra bhay maithuncha dharma vahina pashu samana. We take birth and we die. And between birth and death, there is old age and there is disease. And between birth, death, old age and disease, there's another 4 activities. Ahar, Nidra, Bhay, Mathun. What are these activities? Eating, sleeping, mating and defending. And Srimad Bhagavatam explains these activities are done by animals even. Animals take birth, animals die. Animal get disease, animal gets old. They eat, they sleep, they mate and they defend. So Bhagavatam explains if we do only these activities and we do not make questions regarding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, aha nidra bhay maithuncha dharma vahina pashubi samana. If we simply eat and sleep and mate and defend, Bhagavatam explains dharma bahina pashubi. This sort of life is simply animal life. Simply eating, sleeping, mating and defending. This is not a good life. When we have got a human form of life, in the human form of life, we should make one topmost question. Of course, we have to ask questions for our day-to-day needs. When we are traveling from one place to another place, we have to ask these questions. We cannot avoid asking questions in this material world. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to produce children. But one may ask questions related to these things, but one must not forget the supreme question, the best question. And that question is question about Lord Shri Krishna. That question, how I can live perfectly, how I can live blissfully, how I can live happily in this world. And this particular verse from Srimad Bhagavatam explains that in order to live happily, in order to live blissfully in this world, we must ask question about Lord Krishna. We must ask a question about our Atma. I don't want to die, but that death is imposed onto us. I do not want to get old, but it is forced onto us. Nobody wants to get diseased, but we see that diseases are coming every day. New diseases are coming up in the world. There's so much disease, so many disturbances. Why all these are happening to us? Is there any solution to these things? Because we all are trying to live happily in this world. But this particular world we are living in, it is called Bhavasagara. And if we do not ask this question, how I can get out of this material world, how I can avoid the birth and death, how I can avoid old age and disease, if we do not ask, then again we go into the cycle of 8.4 million species of life. This place is called Bhavasagara. This place, Sagar means ocean and Bhava means miseries. This is ocean of miseries. Mrityu Sansar, this is the Sansar, this is the ocean of Mrityu, as sure as death. When I was doing the series on Bhagavad Gita, I explained in one of my lecture that we may be very beautiful, or we may not be beautiful. We may have wealth, or we may not have wealth. We may have a car, we may not have a car. We may have a big house, or we may not have a big house. So we may have material opulences, or we may not have it. But one thing we all will have, and that is death. No matter when the person dies, person may be a child, person may be in a youth, person may die in an old age, person may die accidentally, person may die suddenly, or person may die after long suffering. Death is always painful. And this material world which we are living in, this Bhavasagar, there's always tides. Sagar is never without a tide. There's always lahar, there are always waves. Sometimes there are huge, big waves, and some there are small waves. But you never see a sagar, you never see an ocean completely still. Ocean is never still, it's always moving. Similarly, this material world, this is called Dukhalyam Ashashvatam. This material world is full of miseries. Always the wave of happiness, misery, 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 sometimes small miseries, happiness, distress, happiness, distress, happiness, distress. So the waves of happiness, distress, they never leave us as long as we have got material body. We have to get off this material body to get out of the miseries of this material world and establish our relationship with Krishna. In order to establish our relationship with Krishna, we must make inquiries. The spiritual life starts with, as Krishna has recommended, Tadvadi pranipatena pariprashrena sevaya. One must approach a spiritual master, a bona fide spiritual master, a Vaishnav spiritual master, who is coming in the disciplic succession since the time of creation. One must ask questions to a Vaishnava. One must ask these questions to that spiritual master. What is the solution of birth and death? How I can establish my relationship with Krishna? These are the spiritual questions. But Krishna explains it should be asked in a humble state of mind, not in a challenging manner. And the spiritual master impart the knowledge into you because he has seen the truth. Satyam param dhimahi. Now who is the Satyam param dhimahi? The topmost Satya. The Satya is Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vasudev is the Param Satya. Vasudev is Param Satyam Dhimahi. We may have so much material education. We may have so much material knowledge, how to maintain our body, how we can live comfortably in this material world. With the big house, with the big car, with the big bank balance. But if we do not know how to swim in this Bhavasagara, in this material world, that means we have wasted our life. We have to take another life. And we go into the cycle again of birth, death, old age and disease. So according to Srimad Bhagavatam, we are awarded a special body. Human form of life is a special body. There are 8.4 million species of life in the material world. But it is mentioned in the Vedas, in our scriptures, out of all these different species of life, 8.4 million species of life, the best form of life is a human form of life. Why human form of life is the best? In the human form of life, we can make an inquiry that I do not want to take birth, I do not want to die, I do not want to get old, I do not want to be diseased. How I can get out of the cycle of 8.4 million species of life? If we do not use human form of life asking this particular question, that who is God and how I can establish relationship with him, that means we have wasted our human form of life. And according to Bhagavad Gita, it's called Kripana. Kripana means conjuice, mean miser. We should not become Kripana. We should not become miser. And why we use the word miser or the Kripana? It's like if someone has got a big bank balance, and if he just keep that big bank balance, this whole money in the bank, and if he never use the money, he becomes so miser that I do not want to use the money. And then after he dies, what is the benefit of saving this wealth? You got so much wealth in the bank account, but you never use it. Miserly. We do not use the wealth. We have wasted the wealth. So similarly, we are awarded this is special form of life. The special form of life is the human form of life. And if we do not use, we become kripana, we become miser, we become conjuice. So we should use our human form of life asking that how I can avoid birth, death, old age and disease. And we must have answers to these questions. I'm sure so many of you must have this question, that I am suffering. Why my father died? Why my relative died? Why my mother died? Why my child died? What sort of karma I have done? Why nature is giving me so much suffering? Why nature is giving me so much pain? I'm sure lots of our viewers must have this question. Now, I tell you the best person who can answer these questions. All of you can get this answer. And the best place or the best person to answer the question is the God himself. If you ask me questions, I may not be able to answer you. You ask someone else, he may be able to answer you or he may not be able to answer you. But there is nobody more powerful than God. There is nobody more greater than God. There is nobody more knowledgeable than God. God himself has got the best knowledge. Nobody in the world, no matter how religious a person may be, nobody can answer better than God himself. So God himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, 5,000 years ago, he answered all these questions which are arising in our tiny brain, in our own mind. 5,000 years ago, at the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Arjuna was in dilemma. Arjuna was confused. Arjuna was perplexed. Why? Because 650 million soldiers were gathered there at that battlefield of Kurukshetra. And they were not outsiders, they were all relatives. Kuru dynasty. And when Arjuna saw so many people, his friends, his relatives, his mamas, his uncles, his grandfather, his gurus, that he needs to fight them. He had to fight them. He was confused. Kar panadosho pehtasva pracham dharam sammudacheta. He approached to Lord Krishna. Shishyaste shadimam tamam prapannam. O Krishna, I am your disciple. Please guide me. I'm confused. At that time, Arjuna asked questions to Krishna. Krishna is not an historical person. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, from whom even Vishnu comes out. All the forms of Vishnu comes from Krishna. Krishna is called Avatari. Vishnu is called Avatar. All the demigods, we see the material world is working. The sun is rising from the east. Sun is setting in the west. We see the seasons are changing. They were changing 1,000 years ago same way. They are changing now the same way. They will change same way again. So this whole nature is working. Durga Devi, Amba Mata, she is controlling this material world. But beyond Durga Devi, beyond Shiva, beyond Brahma, beyond everybody, the most powerful personality is Lord Shri Krishna. And he has answered the questions at the battlefield of Kurukshetra to Arjuna. These answers were not only for Arjuna. Actually, these answers are for us. This is called Bhagavad Gita. So if you want to ask this question about the world, about the material matters, about the spiritual matters, about the Atma, about the Paramatma, about the Bhagwan, about the Karma, the best is approach Lord Shri Krishna through his bona fide representative. We cannot approach Krishna directly. Even in order to read Bhagavad Gita, we should take the guidance of the spiritual master. Tadvidi pranipaten pariprashnena sevaya. Approach the senior devotees. Approach the Vaishnavas. So if you got Bhagavad Gita at home, Bhagavad Gita as it is, please kindly read every day. When you read, if you cannot understand, you make questions. Then you come to our Hare Krishna temple. You speak to some senior devotee. Because these senior devotees, they have dedicated their whole life understanding the philosophy under the guidance of Lord Krishna and Guru and Gauranga, under the guidance of Srila Prabhupada. So you can ask these questions. So these purports in Bhagavad Gita are written by Srila Prabhupada. So we are taking the shelter of Guru and we are taking the shelter of Krishna. So our Bhagavad Gita has got two things. Our Bhagavad Gita has got verses spoken by Lord Krishna or Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. Then we have got explanation by our bona fide Acharya, Guru, Srila Prabhupada. These are his purports. So we can understand. So by reading Bhagavad Gita as it is from Hare Krishna movement, we are taking the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, and we are taking the shelter of his representative Guru, Srila Prabhupada. And by reading Bhagavad Gita, by reading Srimad Bhagavatam, we can make our life perfect, as it is recommended by Sutta Goswami in this particular verse. Question and answers about the well-being of the human society. Question and answers about Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So please keep chanting Hare Krishna every day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. And keep reading these Vedic literature, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and make your life perfect. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.